Louisville, home of the best scrapper, also home of the best rap.
You an American, right? You an American, right? Where was Manny Pacquiao?
What up, what up, what up? You're watching Red Room Sports, home of Aliland, Boxing Talk, the Louisville Cardinals Daily, and the Ghetto Angler Fishing only on the weekends. Alright, y'all, got an awesome topic for today, man. We're going to get straight into it. The topic is Spence Jr. responds to Manny Pacquiao. Pacquiao Ducking or the business of boxing. Alright, y'all, so I want to break down all of that, man. It's a mouthful, but I think once you get to the end of the video, you will have a better insight to where Manny Pacquiao is going with the next year to year and a half of his boxing career, and who he's actually going to be fighting next and why he's going to be fighting that fighter. Alright, y'all, so Manny Pacquiao dropped some news yesterday regarding Errol the Truth Spence Jr. If you want to go check out my last video, it will be the first card that you see, so check that out. But he basically said he feels like Errol Spence is too slow, and he feels like he would beat Errol Spence pretty easily. Now, I've touched on this in the past in other videos. I'll get into it a little bit, but he also said in that same article that it's going to be a good fight. So, in my mind, Pacquiao is planning to fight Errol Spence Jr. based on the wording that he used. Alright, so why is he not choosing to fight Errol Spence Jr. First, as his first fight back from his nearly year and a half layoff? And when is he choosing to fight his next fight? Now, I think he's not choosing Errol Spence Jr. simply because, not because he feels like he can beat him or he feels like Errol Spence Jr. is not worthy of the fight, but that I think it's the complete opposite. I think he feels like the fight is so big and it would be such a big fight, there has to be a crowd of people at this fight. It can't happen with the current situation in the world, as far as them only allowing certain amounts of people into the audience. A Manny Pacquiao fight is an event. It's not just a fight, it's a boxing event. And it's the difference between the fighters of today and the fighters of yesteryear. The fighters of yesteryear, those were events that were held. People planned their whole month around these fights. You know, they would throw parties around these fights. There would be people paying, friends paying each other to watch fights over their house. You know, this doesn't happen anymore. It might be a select few, but as far as these new fighters, it's not the same as it used to be. And the only big fish in the pay-per-view pond that's left is Manny Pacquiao, Canelo Alvarez, and Conor McGreger. Now, MMA is doing great when it comes to pay-per-view. You know, WWF is doing great when it comes, but boxing is losing because their fighters are not putting on the shows and the events that fans want to see. And I think Pacquiao is trying to build something with this Conor McGregor fight. He's trying to turn the Errol Spence fight or the Terrence Crawford fight into an event. You know, when he fights Conor McGregor, it's going to be an event for MMA fans. It's not going to be such an event for boxing fans because they know Conor McGregor can't compete. You know, if you couldn't compete with Floyd Mayweather at all, how can you compete with the likes of Manny Pacquiao even at 42 years of age? Now, it's going to draw in a huge fan base from MMA, and that's what Pacquiao's going after. I think he feels like if I can mix my fan base with this MMA fan base, even a small portion of it, even if he gets 10% of MMA fans to start following him, then that makes the Errol Spence fight even bigger. So if the Errol Spence fight would have did $50 million in gross sales all around, if you add that extra 10% of MMA fans in to the equation, you have a $75 million fight, maybe even a $100 million fight. So he's playing chess as well as running a business. You know, this is the business of boxing. So he has to be strategic, not only with the fact he's getting older, and you know there's a possibility he might lose. So he has to be strategic with who he fights next, and not only that, he has to push a business, the Manny Pacquiao promotion. So he's trying to push that business forward, and the only way for him to do that is to have success in his outings. Now, there's a situation that's coming up regarding the WBC, the WBA and the super title. Is he going to be stripped of that super title if he fights Conor McGreger? Now, I see it playing out in this order, and I think you're seeing news break surrounding Manny Pacquiao at this moment for a strategic reason. And I feel like Conor McGregor is getting ready to fight. Let me check and see real fast. He fights the highly anticipated return of Conor McGregor is set to take place on January 23rd when the former two-division champion meets an old rival in Dustin Poirier at UFC 257 at a Fight Islands in Dubai. Sorry about that, I couldn't see it. But okay, so Conor McGregor fights July 23rd. Now, here's where it's going to get complicated to some people. Now, if you think about this, Manny Pacquiao's announcing now that he's fighting Conor McGregor. Okay, Pacquiao said a few weeks ago, I want to make my return in late March or early April after the Senate session. Okay, so Conor McGregor fights January 23rd. He wins. You know, he might lose. What if he loses? Oh boy. But if he wins and moves on to fight Pacquiao, okay, you got January, February, March, April. That's 4 months for Conor McGregor. Well, you got three months and a week for Conor McGregor to recover, get prepared for the Pacquiao fight. The Pacquiao fight takes place in April. In the meantime, you know, Pacquiao doesn't have to be in the best shape for this return. You know, he's fighting Conor McGregor. It might be an actual boxing match on his record, but he's going to wipe the floor. It might as well be an exhibition. But that will give Pacquiao, let's say, February, March, 2 months to prepare for Conor McGregor in April. So he fights Conor McGregor in April. That's the tune-up. Like he said, and like Errol Spence Jr. said, I would like to fight again in the summertime. Okay, you paying attention? All this stuff was already being said, and there's so much sensationalism going on, and nobody paying attention to what these guys are actually saying. And then Manny Pacquiao said he would like to fight 2 times in 2021, right? He didn't say I'm going to fight 2 times and then retire. He said, hey, I'm going to fight 2 times in 2021. So to me, the first fight is Conor McGregor, the tune-up. The second fight is going to be Errol Spence Jr. in the summertime. He's already stated it's going to be a good fight. So that's how I see it playing out. I feel like all this news is breaking simply because he's trying to hype his fight with McGregor up, you know, using the Poirier fight. Okay, you hype that fight up, you do the McGregor fight, you get a little bit of the MMA fan base. You've already started hyping the Errol Spence fight up by calling him slow and saying you would beat him easily. So, you know, he's just setting up, you know, making both of these fights marketable, you know, in my mind. And I think it's going to play out exactly in that order. I think you're going to see Manny Pacquiao fight Conor McGregor in April, sometime in April, probably mid-April. And then you're going to see Manny Pacquiao announce his fight with Errol Spence Jr. soon after that Conor McGregor tune-up fight. I did want to touch on an article from WBA, and I will be sharing the screen with you guys so you guys can read along with some of the things that have been said. But basically, I want to share this article. It's from WBA. It says, Errol Spence 3-belt unification possible as Manny Pacquiao moves on. And they spoke about, basically they spoke about Manny Pacquiao's decision not to fight Errol Spence Jr. The situation leaves the World Boxing Association with a decision to make regarding Pacquiao's WBA title. The belt he took from Keith Thurman in the summer of 2019, July, when Manny Pacquiao in the summer of 2019. By July this year, when Manny Pacquiao versus Conor McGreger is likely to take place without a single defense of his super version of the title, the WBA could act before then not to strip Pacquiao in detrimental terms, but to elevate Yordenis Ugas to full ruler position by dissolving the super belt due to lack of activity. Ugas would then be the only recognized title holder at 147 pounds under the jurisdiction of the WBA. That's a mouthful, man. I was skipping because I don't like giving away these people's whole articles, man. So sometimes I skip through the article. But basically, they're saying, okay, now the WBA has a decision to make here. Do we allow Pacquiao to come back, have a tune-up versus McGregor, and then fight Spence in the summertime for a unification fight? Do we accept that? Or do we just say, hey, we're going to dissolve the super title since you haven't fought anybody in almost 2 years, and elevate who is the regular champion, Yordenis Ugas, because the regular champion is the mandatory for the super champion. Now, I keep telling you guys, there is still a possibility. None of this is official yet. There is still a possibility that Manny Pacquiao is forced to fight Yordenis Ugas or be stripped. So if he wants to hold that title, because him fighting Errol Spence Jr. makes no sense if he doesn't hold that title. So it's all going to depend on Manny Pacquiao's decision whether you're going to continue in the sport of boxing beyond 2021. I think that's going to be the major decision. If he fights McGregor and the WBA is like, okay, well, we'll take that as a tune-up fight, and you go fight Spence for a unification fight, in that situation, it's up to the WBA whether they feel like that's in their best favor, or it's in their best favor to have you guys become elevated. Because here's the doozy in there, and this is a long video, but I'm sorry, I'm trying to break everything down for you. Here's the doozy in there. If Pacquiao stripped of the title, you guys becomes the unified champion with the regular and the super title, which gives him the super title. He becomes and Errol Spence has already said he wants to fight Yordenis Ugas. So it could be an easier road for Errol Spence Jr. to unify another belt if he just waits Manny Pacquiao out. Because eventually they are going to strip him. Either he has to fight a mandatory or someone ranked in the WBA, or Spence Jr., or be stripped. Yordenis Ugas gets elevated, and then he can just go fight you guys and have 3 belts, and he's the A side versus Terrence Crawford, and he could say, hey, I'm the unified champion with 3 belts now. So it makes it even more difficult for Terrence Crawford at that point, But if you ask me, I think the WBA is going to give Pacquiao a pass because of everything going on in the world. He's going to fight McGregor for a tune-up, and then he's going to fight Errol Spence Jr. in the summertime. And then we will probably see Manny Pacquiao versus Terrence Crawford either as a New Year's fight or in the first quarter of 2022. Let me know what y'all think about all that, man. I'm sorry I was rambling on a little bit and I messed up the article a little bit, but let me know what y'all think down in the comments section, boy. If you want to be a part of Red Room Sports, Ollie Land Boxing Talk, the Louisville Cardinals Daily, or the Ghetto Angler Fishing, hit me up in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think, man. If you enjoy the show, hit that like button for me. Please subscribe. It helps the algorithm, helps our community grow, and we can all grow together. It's your boy Cardinal Red for now, man, and we are out of here.
You're an American, right? You're an American, right? Where was Manny Pacquiao?
Louisville, home of the best scrapper, also home of the best rap.